The Black Amazon of Mars. Chapter 2. Stark waited until they should tire of their own silence. Finally, one demanded, "Of what country are you?" He answered, "I am called N'Chaka, the man without a tribe." It was the name they had given him, the half-human aboriginals who had raised him in the blaze and thunder and bitter forests of Mercury. "A stranger," said the leader, and smiled. He pointed at the dead Kamar and asked, "Did you slay him?" "He was my friend," said Stark. "I was bringing him home to die." Two riders dismounted to inspect the body. One called up the leader. "He was from Kushat, if I know the breed. Thawed, and he has not been robbed." He proceeded to take care of that detail himself. "A stranger," repeated the leader, thawed. "Bound for Kushat, and with a man of Kushat. Well, I think you will come with us, stranger." Stark shrugged, and with the long spears pricking him, he did not resist when the tall Thord plundered him of all he owned except his clothes and Kamar's belt, which was not worth the stealing. His gun Thord flung contemptuously away. One of the men brought Stark's beast and Kamar's from where they were tethered, and the Earthmen mounted, as usual, over the violent protests of the creature, which did not like the smell of him. They moved out from under the shelter of the walls into the full fury of the wind. For the rest of that night, and through the next day, and the night that followed it, they rode eastward, stopping only to rest the beasts and chew on their rations of jerked meat. To Stark, riding a prisoner, it came with full force that this was the North Country, half a world away from the Mars of spaceships and commerce and visitors from other planets. The future had never touched these wild mountains and barren plains. The past held pride enough. To the north, the horizon showed a strange and ghostly glimmer where the barrier wall of the polar pack reared up, gigantic against the sky. The wind blew down from the ice, through the mountain gorges across the plains, never ceasing, and here and there the cryptic towers rose, broken monoliths of stone. Stark remembered the vision of the talisman, the huge structure crowned with eerie darkness. He looked upon the ruins with loathing and curiosity. The men of Mech could tell him nothing. Thord did not tell Stark where they were taking him, and Stark did not ask. It would have been an admission of fear. In mid-afternoon of the second day, they came to a lip of rock where the snow was swept clean, and below it was a sheer drop into a narrow valley. Looking down, Stark saw that on the floor of the valley, up and down as far as he could see, were men and beasts and shelters of hide and brush, with fires burning, by the hundreds and by the several thousand. They camped under the cliffs, and their voices rose up on the thin air in a vast deep murmur that was deafening before the silence of the plains. A war party, gathered now before the thaw. Stark smiled. He became curious to meet the leader of this army. They found their way single file along the winding track that dropped down the cliff face, the wind stopping abruptly, cut off by the valley walls. they came in among the shelters of the camp, where the snow was churned and soiled and melted to slush by the fires. There were no women in the camp, no sign of the cheerful rabble that follows a barbarian army. There were only men, hillmen, and warriors all, tough-handed killers, with no thought but battle. They came out of their holes to shout at Thord and his men, and stared at the stranger. Thord was flushed and jovial with importance. "I have no time for you," he shouted. "I go to speak with the Lord Siren." Stark rode impassively, a dark giant with a face of stone. From time to time he made his beast curvet, and laughed at himself inwardly for doing it. They came at length to a shelter larger than the others, but built exactly the same and no more comfortable. A spear was thrust into the snow beside the entrance, and from it hung a black pennant with a single bar of silver across it, like lightning in a night sky. Beside it was a shield with the same device. There were no guards. Thord dismounted, bidding Stark to do the same. He hammered upon the shield with the hilt of his sword, announcing himself. "Lord Chiron, it is Thord, with a captive." A voice, toneless and strangely muffled, spoke from within. "Enter, Thord." Thord pushed aside the hide curtain and went in, with Stark upon his heels. The dim daylight did not penetrate the interior. Cressets burned, giving off a flickering brilliance and a smell of strong oil. The floor of packed snow was carpeted with furs, much worn. Otherwise there was no adornment, and no furniture but a chair and a table, both dark with age and use, and a pallet of skins in one shadowy corner, with what seemed to be a heap of rags upon it. In the chair sat a man. He seemed very tall, in the shaking light of the cressets. From neck to thigh his lean body was cased in black link mail, and under that a tunic of leather, dyed black. Across his knees he held a sable axe, a great thing made for the shearing of skulls, and his hands lay upon it gently, as though it were a toy he loved. His head and face were covered by a thing that Stark had seen before only in very old paintings, the ancient war masks of the inland kings of Mars, wrought of black and gleaming steel. It presented an unhuman visage of slitted eye-holes and a bared slot for breathing. Behind it sprung out in a thin soaring sweep, like a dark wing, edge-on in flight. The intent, expressionless scrutiny of that mask was bent not upon Thord, but upon Eric John Stark. That deep, hollow voice spoke again from behind the mask. "Well?" "We were hunting in the gorges to the south," said Thord. "We saw a fire." He told the story of how they had found the stranger and the body of the man from Kushat. "Kushat?" said the Lord Siren softly. "Ah, and why, stranger, were you going to Kushat?" "My name is Stark, Eric John Stark, Earthman out of Mercury." He was tired of being called stranger. Quite suddenly, he was tired of the whole business. "Why should I not go to Kushat? Is it against some law that a man may not go there in peace without being hounded all over the Norlands? And why do the men of Mech make it their business? They have nothing to do with the city. Thord held his breath, watching with delighted anticipation. The hands of the man in armor caressed the axe. They were slender hands, smooth, sinewy, small hands it seemed for such a great weapon. "We will make what we will our business, Eric John Stark." He spoke with a peculiar gentleness. "I have asked you, why are you going to Kushat?" "Because," Stark answered with equal restraint, "my comrade wanted to go home to die." "It seems a long, hard journey, just for dying." The black helm bent forward in an attitude of thought. "Only the condemned or banished leave their cities or their clans. Why did your comrade flee Kushat?" A voice spoke suddenly from out of the heap of rags that lay upon the pallet in the shadow of the corner. A man's voice, deep and husky, with the harsh quiver of age or madness within it. "3 men beside myself have fled Kushat. Over the years that matter. 1 died in the spring floods. 1 was caught in the moving of ice of winter. 1 lived. A thief named Kamar, who stole a certain talisman." Stark spoke. "My comrade was called Grishi." The leather belt weighed heavy, and the iron boss seemed hot against his belly. He was beginning now to be afraid. The Lord Siren spoke, ignoring Stark. "It was the sacred talisman of Kushat. Without it, the city is like a man without a soul." As the veil of Tanit was to Carthage, Stark thought, and reflected on the fate of the city after the veil was stolen. "The nobles were afraid of their own people," the man in armor spoke. "They did not dare to tell that it was gone, but we know." "And," said Stark, "you will attack Kushat before the thaw, when they least expect you." "You have a sharp mind, stranger. Yes, but the great wall will be hard to carry. Even so, if I came, bearing in my hands the talisman of Ban Kra." He did not finish, but turned instead to Thord. "When you plundered the dead man's body, what did you find?" "Nothing, Lord. A few coins, a knife, hardly worth the taking." "And you, Eric John Stark, what did you take from the body?" With perfect truth he answered, "Nothing." "Thord," said the lied Chiron, "search him." Thord came smiling up to Stark and ripped his jacket open. With uncanny swiftness the earthman moved. The edge of one broad hand took Thord under the ear, and before the man's knees had time to sag, Stark had caught his arm. He turned, crouching forward, and pitched Thord headlong through the door flap. He straightened and turned again. His eyes held a feral glint. "The man has robbed me once," he said. "It is enough." He heard Thor's men coming. 3 of them tried to jam through the entrance at once, and he sprang at them. He made no sound. His fists did the talking for him, and then his feet, as he kicked the stunned barbarians back upon their leader. "Now," he said to the Lord Siren, "will we talk as men?" The man in armor laughed, a sound of pure enjoyment. It seemed that the gaze upon the mask studied Stark's savage face, and then lifted to greet the sullen Thor who came back into the shelter, his cheeks flushed with crimson rage. "Go," said the Lord Chiron. "The stranger and I will talk." "But, Lord," he protests, glaring at Stark, "it is not safe." "My dark mistress looks after my safety," said Chiron, stroking the axe lovingly across his knees. "Go." Thor went. The man in armor was silent then. The blind mask turned to Stark, who met that eyeless glaze and was silent also, and the bundle of rags in the shadows straightened slowly and became a tall old man with rusty hair and beard, through which peered craggy juts of bone and 2 bright small points of fire, as though some wicked flame burned within him. He shuffled over and crouched at the feet of the Lord Chiron, watching the Earthmen, and the man in armor softly leaned forward. "I will tell you something, Eric John Stark. I am a bastard, but I come of the blood of kings. My name and rank I must make with my own hands, but I will set them high, and my name will ring in the Norlands. I will take Kushat. Who holds Kushat holds Mars, and the power and the riches that lie beyond the gates of death." "I have seen them," said the old man, and his eyes blazed. "I have seen Mankra, the mighty. I have seen the temples and the palaces glitter in the ice. I have seen them, the shining ones. Oh, I have seen them, the beautiful, hideous ones." He glanced sidelong at Stark, very cunning. "That is why Ottar is mad, stranger. He has seen." A chill swept Stark. He too had seen, not with his own eyes, but with the mind and memories of Mankra of 1,000,000 years ago. Then it had been no illusion. That fantastic vision opened to him by the talisman, now hidden upon his melt. If this old man had seen. "What beings lurk beyond the gates of death I do not know," said Chiron, "but my dark mistress will test their strength, and I think my red wolves will hunt them down once they get a smell of plunder." "The beautiful, terrible ones," whispered Ottar, "and all the temples and the palaces and the great towers of stone." "Ride with me, Stark," said the Lord Chiron abruptly. "Yield up the talisman and be the shield at my back. I have offered no man that honor." Stark spoke slowly. "Why do you choose me?" "We are of one blood, Stark, though we be strangers." The Earthman's cold eyes narrowed. What would your red wolves say to that? What would Ottar say? Look at him. already stiff with jealousy and fear lest I answer yes. I do not think you would be afraid of either of them. On the contrary, spoke Stark, I am a prudent man. He paused. There is one other thing. I will bargain with no man until I have looked into his eyes. Take off your helm, Chiron, and perhaps we will talk. Otar's breath made a snake-like hiss between his toothless gums. The hands of Lord Chiron tightened on the hilt of the axe. No, he whispered. That I can never do. Otar rose to his feet, and for the first time Stark felt the full strength that lay upon the strange old man. Would you look upon the face of destruction? He thundered. Do you ask for death? Do you think a thing is hidden behind a mask of steel without a reason, that you demand to see it? He turned. My lord, he said, by tomorrow the last of the clans will have joined us. After that, we must march. Give this earthman to Thord for the time that remains, and you will have that talisman. The blank, blind mask was unmoving and turned towards Stark, and the earthman thought that from behind it came the faint sound that might have been a sigh. Then, Thord! Cried the Lord Chiron, and lifted up the sable axe.